Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And if you don't already know, make sure you're tuned in for our Week 14 live watch party here on the Raiders Report. Minnesota Vikings on the road to take on the 5-7 Las Vegas Raiders. Both teams coming off a bye. So, hopefully, you're going to have Antonio Pierce's team ready to go because I know this, Justin Jefferson is back. And it's going to be a very, very interesting thing to watch. But coming up here on today's show, we're going to be breaking down some keys to victory. I got them on the offensive side of the football, on the defensive side of the football. And if this is not a good enough reason to hit subscribe, guess what, Jeremy? We are doing a Jim Plunkett signed jersey giveaway. Signed by Jim Plunkett himself. And the only way that you got a shot at winning is if you're subscribed. And if you join our watch party on Sunday when the Raiders, hopefully, take down the Minnesota Vikings. So the way that we're going to start this thing off here is we're going to start on the offensive side of the football like we usually do, and then we're going to go to the defensive side of the ball. So for those that do not know, Patrick Seatman, you guys have seen him a few times here on this show. He runs our Vikings show, and I asked him, all right, give me the lowdown on Minnesota and how to beat them. One of the very first things that we discussed in terms of how to take them down, you better be ready to stop the blitz. There is no team in the NFL that blitzes more than the Vikings. In fact, they're blitzing over 70% of the time. And if you're the offensive line for the Silver and Black, so Colton Miller, he's been banged up, Dylan Parham, Andre James, Greg Van Roten, Jermaine Illuminor, guess what? I am looking at all of y'all because you need to be able to bring your A game, because if you don't, unfortunately, it might be a rough game for Aidan O'Connell. So depending on how the Raiders' offensive line, depending on how Bo Hardegree, how the entire team handles the Vikings blitz, because they are going to blitz early and often, depending on how you handle that, really can set the tone for how this game's going to go for the entire night. Let's go to the next key here, and this one kind of coincides with the blitzing atmosphere. Aidan's got to get the ball out quick. He needs to make quick reads. And I'm not sitting there saying, first read, get rid of it. First read, get rid of it. I'm not trying to go back to the Josh McDaniels offense. However, Aidan does hang on to the football too long. And that's kind of like the biggest knock on him. One of the biggest knocks on that I have right now with him. To me, though, the Raiders got to create simple routes in terms of you always have to have a guy in the flat, or you always have to have a check down guy. If your first two reads are Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers, cool, right? But Michael Mayer needs to be at 3 yards away. Josh Jacobs needs to be able to quick little dump off. Maybe it's a Hunter Renfrow quick out route, like a hook and curl. You need to have quick outs where if his first two reads aren't there and Minnesota's going to bring pressure often, he needs to be able to get the ball out quickly. Bo Hardegree, this one's on you as well. Let's go to the next one here. Don't stop beating Josh Jacobs. And sometimes I get so frustrated with the Raiders offense because Jacobs gets the ball going, right? Like against the Chiefs, that dude was rolling and running like an absolute madman, and he's gotten better and better and better. However, Minnesota has done a pretty solid job this season against the running back position, even though they're allowing only 3.6 yards per carry on average to the running back position. I don't care if Jacobs' first 10 runs go for 10 yards. Like, to me, you have to stick to it. You got to stick to the running game. That's going to take pressure off your offensive line. It's going to take pressure off Aidan O'Connell, and it's going to make the Vikings think a second or two longer about potentially blitzing. That's what the Raiders need to do. On top of that, Las Vegas in their 5 wins this season, Jacobs is averaging 25.6 touches a game. Get the ball in his hands. He's one of the best backs in the NFL. Next thing coming up here for our 5 offensive keys to victory against Minnesota, I want you to target Davante Adams. Like, Davante's got to be hella frustrated because he's having, again, I know what Davante Adams is, but he's having the worst seasons that he's had in probably since 2019. But the reason why I'm bringing this up here is one of the things that Seeps told me that's the biggest weakness for Minnesota is they struggle against number 1 receivers. So to me, if Davante gets 12 or 13 targets in today's game, great. Feed him the rock as early and often as possible. Get him going. Like the offense that the Raiders ran in the first quarter, second quarter against Kansas City where Davante looked like he was about to just rip open this game. And then you go away from him in the second half. I'm sick and tired of that just being okay. Davante Adams cannot be targeted enough in this football game. And I also want to settle a little bit of a debate. Davante Adams, Justin Jefferson, who's the best wide receiver in the league? Let me know down below. Here we go, the final one, and this one is something that Raider fans have been talking about since McDaniels, and Antonio Pierce talked about it a little bit this week in his press conference, where you got to finish games. Like, we got to be able to finish games, but we also have to be creative for 4 quarters. Las Vegas actually is one of the best teams in the NFL in scoring in the first quarter. They are a top 10 scoring offense in the first quarter this year. The problem is they are bottom 5 in all the other quarters, and they might be the worst team in the NFL in scoring in the third quarter, the last time that I checked, right? Here's the problem. Bo Hardegree, you need to be creative early on. I get it. And whatever that game plan is, if they start taking away what you're doing, a good head coach, a good offensive coordinator has the ability to make changes in the middle of the game. You need to be able to make adjustments. You need to be able to make corrections. And if you're unable to do that stuff, you don't have a future in this league. Honestly, you probably don't have a future at a lot of jobs. I don't care what you do. If you're running a YouTube show, you need to learn how to adjust. If you're a plumber, you need to learn how to adjust. If you're a car salesman, you need to learn how to adjust. It is a common thing that adults need to learn how to do in whatever your profession is, and only people that are successful can learn how to do it. So let's be creative. Let's learn how to adjust, and I think we're going to win this football game. I'll give you some keys to the defensive side of the football here in just a second, but today's sponsor, Prize Picks, and if anybody wants to get started, it's daily fantasy sports made easy. Shout out to Prize Picks for hooking up the nation here. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. And recently, I've been testing my skill on Prize Picks this season because it's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. And if you're like, all right, Mitch, tell me your picks for this week. Well, I just told you how much Minnesota struggles against number 1, so give me the more on Davante Adams. TJ Hockenson at 52.5 receiving yards. I actually like that one for Josh Dobbs because he likes to check it down. Give me the more on Aidan O'Connell. Jacobs, even though I'm saying to stick with the running game, Minnesota is good against backs. So for that reason, I am going to take the less. And if anybody wants to fade my picks, do it. Let me know how y'all have done. Because recently, I've been winning some serious cash flow, so much that even Alex, my fiance, on games that we would not care about if I'm being honest with y'all, but even in games that we're sitting at home, we're chilling, and she has no influence on them whatsoever, we put down $10. I give her a chance to win 100, and guess what? It gives me an excuse to watch a little bit of football. Even if it's my money, I'm okay to do it because it's not too often Alex looks at me and she goes, can we watch football and can we do Prize Picks? If you want to get started, it's prizepicks.com/CLNS. That link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. All right, so we already went through our 5 offensive keys to take down the Minnesota Vikings, which now means it's time to look at the defense of side of the football. And we're going to start here by getting after, and you got to pressure Josh Dobbs because to me, when you pressure Dobbs, turnovers are going to come. And that's kind of how this entire Viking season has gone, whether it's been Josh Dobbs or whether it's been Kirk Cousins. When you have put their quarterbacks under pressure, it has resulted in a lot of turnovers. And I do think one of the reasons is because a lot of the routes that Minnesota runs, it's a little bit further down the field. And when you're pressured, that means that either the quarterback's going to rush his throw or it's going to put him in a bad position. Dobbs last week was terrible. He had 4 interceptions. Nobody knew if he was even going to start. They named him the starter because they kind of have to roll with him. He gives them the best option. However, the way that the Raiders secondary has played, the way that the Raiders have played, don't be afraid to be a little bit ballsy. Maybe bring some blitzes, get after them. It's going to lead to some turnovers. The next one, and this one was actually one that I really appreciate that Seeps gave me because this is that extra level of knowledge that I like to be able to have. Obviously, I don't watch the Minnesota Vikings as often as he does. He said if you're going to design blitzes, if you're going to design schemes, target the right guard, Ed Ingram. And reason, he said that he's been by far one of the worst offensive linemen in the National Football League this season. And if you go look at a lot of the numbers, they indicate that. 4 sacks allowed, 12 games. I mean, that's not even close to how bad Ingram has been, but that's the weakest link, right? Like, you remember the old game that you used to play when you were kids, Red Rover? Red Rover. Well, guess what? If I'm getting sent on over, I'm going after Ed Ingram, and hopefully Patrick Graham designed some blitzes to be able to get after Ingram himself. Next one coming up here. I know. Don't allow any big plays. The Vikings this season have really struggled, like the 7-play drives, the 8-play drives, the 9-play drives, the extended drives. However, where they have really hurt people is the deep ball, the long play. And one of the guys who's best at it in the league is Justin Jefferson, and he's back this week. So Jefferson, I want to say, hasn't played since week 5. He's been on IR. He's been battling an injury. I mean, that's 5 games, 36 catches, 571 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nate Hobbs, you better be ready. Tyler Hall, you better be ready. Amik Robertson, you better be ready. Hell, all the Raiders corners, this time you step it up. You moved on from Marcus Peters. You've had 2 weeks to be able to prepare. And the number one route that Minnesota runs, and the number one route that Jefferson's probably better at than anybody in the league, are the crossing routes. And the reason why this is a big one this week is this is what the Chiefs did for 3 quarters last week, or 2 weeks ago, excuse me. They did it countlessly, and the Raiders had no answer. They couldn't stop it. Well, guess what? Minnesota's going to do the exact same thing. So you better learn how to stop the intermediate, the deep crossing route, because if you don't, Justin Jefferson, going to eat you alive. TJ Hockenson, going to eat you alive. Jordan Addison, they are going to eat you alive. So the Raiders make some adjustments, make some corrections, get physical with Minnesota. This is a team that you can get physical with from the receiver standpoint. But if you don't learn how to stop crossing routes, it's just going to be that over and over and over again. The final one is this, and it kind of goes back to the physicality. It's get physical with TJ Hockenson. And Hockenson's the number 2 in this offense behind Justin Jefferson. And you can put a lot of concentration on Jefferson. I get it. He's a little bit more difficult to jam at the line because of his athletic ability, and Hockenson's a bigger player. However, when it comes to tight ends, Hockenson, I'll say, is one of the more soft tight ends in the league. Yes, he has the ability to catch, like, that sounds really weird, doesn't it? Soft tight ends in the league, especially with this haircut. No, but seriously, though, to me, you need to get up there and you need to hit Hockenson at the line. And it's one thing that I think that the Raiders have done an okay job here and there against tight ends, but you can't make his life easy. This is Dobbs' safety valve. This is Dobbs' Jefferson's not open. Addison's not open. Panic. I'm going to check it down to TJ. Jam him up at the line. Don't let him beat you in the middle of the seam, because that's where Hockenson, me personally, think where he's at his best. So my 5 defensive keys for the Raiders to take down the Vikings: get after Dobbs. It's going to lead to some turnovers. If you're going to blitz, if you're going to pressure, and you want to do it often, target the right guard, Ed Ingram. Don't allow the big plays. Stop the crossing routes, and let's get physical with TJ Hockenson. So the last time that I checked, it's a low over-under, 40.5 points. The Vikings are 3-point favorites on the road, which I'm not too surprised about. I do like every single time that the Raiders are underdogs, if I'm being 100% honest with y'all. So here's what we're going to do. For those of you watching live, give me your score predictions. I'll give you some shout-outs. For those of you that aren't watching this live, give me your score predictions. My answer is going to be coming up right here after this YouTube ad break. My score prediction for the Las Vegas Raiders against the Vikings, I'm going to go this route, and I'm going to go very unconventional. I'm going to say Raiders get the dub 31-20 over Minnesota. I think this is a big game for Aidan O'Connell. I think it's going to be a big game for Davante. And I think that Minnesota is going to struggle a lot more offensively, even though they have Justin Jefferson back. So give me the Raiders to win 31-20. I also want to be able to talk about the AFC playoff picture, because every game from here on out for the Silver and Black, it is a playoff game. So at the time that I am making this video, Dolphins, Ravens, Chiefs, Jags, 1 through 4, they're the division leaders. Steelers at the 5 seed, Browns, Colts. However, because we are making this video right before Thursday Night Football, I wanted to be able to show y'all what happens if the Steelers win, which this might surprise you. Nothing happens. The Patriots go to 2-11. The Steelers stay at number 5, and they are sitting at 8-5 on the season. Here's where it gets interesting, and I know that we hate McDaniels, but I'm rooting for New England tonight, man. I am going for the Patriots to win, because if they win, Browns go up to 5, Colts go up to 6, Texans jump up to 7, and hell, the Steelers drop all the way down and out. if the Raiders have any chance of making the playoffs, and until that percentage is 0, guess what? Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So that is the AFC playoff picture. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, staying up to date here on the Raiders. If you want to never miss anything, follow me on IG, follow me on Twitter, @Mitchell Renz 365.